Shoot, like even walking in here, y'all see how they were staring at us?
Yeah, because I walked in with a tripod, what is this big black thing that this young black man's carrying?
Like, what are you guys doing?
Oh, the security, he keep walking by.
Yeah, of course.
It's like the third time.
He gave us a real look when we walked through here.
Mm-hmm.
There's 100 people in here.
Where are they going?
And we're here legally, bro. I rented out the space. We were good. We're supposed to be in here. Like, the shit that bothers me. Like, that shit bothers me. How we can't walk into any space and just be consumers or customers and just be like everybody else.
Not even just the work, for me having a tripod, that's obviously something that's gonna cause extra stairs.
I also want my kids to ignore that type of. I don't even want them to be paying attention to that.
Right, and a lot of times they do.
But yeah, Jaden, my sister's son, he's young, but he's very knowledgeable of everything. He observes everything, so he'll point out some stuff like, oh yeah, they don't like this because of this and that. He'll explain it all. I was like, oh, you understand this.
That's good though. It's good to understand that. But sometimes it's gonna be hard to ignore though, because you can ignore stairs. For example, we ignore shit every day. Like ignore it every day.
Yeah.
But when people physically try to stop you or walk up to you in your space and they're trying to hey, what are you doing here? Like, it's hard to ignore that.
Yeah.
At least for me, it's hard.
Yeah, physical. Yeah.
I don't know, for me, it's hard to ignore anybody that is giving me side glances that has a gun on the hip. That's automatic.
Most definitely.
That's
yeah, I was watching that. No, I was watching that security guard. Because he was giving us a real bro, we were just walking into the library. That's not a crime.
Mm-hmm.
It's noon. I have a time, an appointment time. like what? But he has to keep walking by here, which is crazy. That is very crazy.
I've seen it.
Yeah, I saw him just walk by just now.
But these are things that we, as black men, we're cognizant of, and then we go through. Because if we were white, we probably wouldn't think about that.
Yeah,
It wouldn't have been a second thought.
Yeah, I would have walked in with my tripod.
Talking to him and stuff,
Okay,
Is it day? Yeah. You want Starbucks? Yeah, get you one.
But naturally, though, but our natural thing is to be like, all right, he kind of looked at me kind of funny. He's in a kind of a position of authority where if something were to happen, he can call somebody, he can cause me trouble at this moment, right? And having to be aware of that, make sure we don't have any if we're not being too loud in here or stuff like that. Like that constant conditioning to our people is damaging, bro. To the 10th power. It's so disheartening. But again, if we get to our youth young and let them understand what their rights are, because really we have every right to be in this room and he can't come in here and say anything to us, right? And we know that. So if he were to come in here and say something, I know what I can say to him and say, bro, get out of here. But
I mean, I have the right to openly film. It's professional equipment that's my business. So.
Well, and it's but this room is like a study room, so it's used for college kids to either do presentations or study, do homework, whatever the case may be. So we're within our rights to do what we're doing here.
Mm-hmm.
But also,
I have a library card.
So do I. I have a library card too, to this library card.
Yeah.
But being cognizant of just that, having to be cognizant of that, it's stupid.
Mm-hmm.
It's so stupid. But I mean, so has your kids even have you been through anything with them yet? Have they experienced?
Not really. They haven't experienced that much. I couldn't say, because my oldest, he lives in Casa Grande with his mother, Coolidge, and there was this one incident where somebody had said that he had either a gun at school or a type of bomb, but it was this word of mouth type stuff, and I was like, I didn't like hearing that at all.
No, put it on my child as a bomb at school. Wait,
yeah, or I think it was more like a gun, but I was just
even so,
it seemed like
and you your child,
I'm so what's up with this? I was like, oh, somebody said they didn't say it was me, but somebody said that it was me, or something like that.
But the crazy part of it, all it takes is somebody to say it was him.
Exactly. That's kind of worried.
And worse, things that come in and rush him, and they don't even question or de-escalate, get to the bottom of what's going on before they rush your child. That's scary.
What?
It's very ready, fire, aim kind of mentality where it's okay, we've got to shoot the suspect, and then after the fact, that's when they find out, oh, he was unarmed. And I feel like that's what tends to happen to people of color, just in general. It's more of a shoot first, ask questions later, and then see what happened in the situation. as opposed to if it's a white suspect, then it's more of a, okay, we're going to try and de-escalate first. We're going to try and calm them down and say like, hey, do a non-lethal takedown. And those are the tactics that they use. But
all the time.
it's all about
Any
programming.
tactics.
It's never a
Like,
shootout with them.
you could run away and still get shot. You know.
You get your hands up, you can be compliant and all those things. I just like also want kids to understand, like, as young black males, you're 5 times more likely to get stopped and arrested than your white counterparts. Like, understanding that notion. Like, you have children from the ages 13 to 17, really, that age group of young black males need to understand that mostly. That you're 5 times more likely to get stopped or arrested just because you're black. And your sentence will be a little harsher than their sentences for the same crime. It's just being aware of these things, man. Like when my kids get to a point where they have to really understand this, I'm gonna try my best to make sure, like, look, make sure you're not here. Make sure you're not here. Make sure you're not with this many group of people. But luckily for my children and your kids, like the way they grow up, these kids all love each other, and it's a very multiracial scenario for them. So they'll be around a bunch of other kids. But being stopped, the darker skinned people will tend to be singled out, right? That has to be something that has to be known for them.
And one thing you brought up a good point. I think one thing that I am optimistic about is that because our generation is way more lenient when it comes towards, people of mixed race and kind of racial mixing.
Do you, bro?
These children that are coming up after us have way less animosity towards like people who are dark skinned versus light skinned versus white versus black. So there may be a chance where like maybe not this generation, maybe not the next generation, but the racism maybe can grow out of us. But
it's a learned thing.
It's a learned thing.
That learned, and it's just what's going on nowadays. Anyways, we're breeding a lot more. Like everybody's mixing.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's one race. Probably, I think my sister has, her 2 who are full black, and then I'm like probably the only one who actually has black big mothers.
Yeah, fully, mostly, yeah. But like,
not everybody, but it's like, everybody knows that they're mixed and they're different. Everybody has different curly, straight hair, whatever it is.
But it's family nonetheless.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing though, because I think racism will get bred out just because we are going to be tan, right? There's going to be a lot of kids. Most kids are your color, right? That's just going to be the general color for most people. But it's systematic, right? We have to understand things that are put in place for still people of color to be put behind, right? If we can systematically help these things out, like mass incarceration, understanding prison to school pipeline, like that biggest thing. Education is the biggest thing, right? Having to teach things.
That's also the thing that nobody understands, that we're actually more black people in college than in prison nowadays.
Mm-hmm. That is good.
We overcome that whole thing that was all about the 90s and whatever. People was down,
We still need to take a look at our justice system because we're still the majority of people in prison, but
of course.
It's a good thing that we are going to college more than going to prison. So that's definitely a huge just accomplishment for us. And also another thing that I think is kind of left out too is that we're also starting more businesses as well, and there's more minority-owned businesses than ever before.
Just something to do for us. Our kids need something to do. Right, a lot of times in these other areas, that are gang-infested areas, things are idle. There's something happening. But the more resources we can give them, the more knowledge we can give them, the better they'll do with themselves. Like when I read this article about how, as early as 2nd, 3rd grade, they take these kids in the middle rural areas and the ghetto areas, their test scores, and then they try to project those scores into prison terms. Like they start that early about trying to get kids that school to prison pipeline. So we have to start even earlier to understand, so they can understand, like, this is the game they have for you, but this is where you need to go, right? Just rights and education for our kids. It's like the biggest thing that would help them out. Just understanding what your rights are and how you should go about it when things do happen to you. Like, I wish there were women here to kind of get that concept, just because there is a lot of mixed race kids with their mothers who are not mainly white, mothers that are white with black sons that need to understand if your son comes home and he's been followed or this happened to him, your thought is not to immediately ask him what he did wrong, as opposed to understanding this is the reason why that may be happening to you, son.
Because
They go about this way.
That's how they say us with, like, what'd you do?
Right, always. It's always what did you do wrong, but it's never like, nah, I was just there. Kids Central Park 5, right? I was just there. I didn't do anything. I was just
Like, what are
there.
you talking about?
I mean, I remember the first time I was put in handcuffs, and it was New Year's Eve. Just went to a party with friends, and noise complaint turned into a huge situation because some person opened the door and said, "What the fuck are you guys doing here?" to the cops. And immediately after that, put in handcuffs. Everybody got put in handcuffs, and of course, who were the first people they looked at? The minorities.
Of course. But like when you went home, did your mother know about it?
Nah, my mom had passed away.
Oh, I'm so sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries.
But like just if did you go home, that happens to you, and then you go and tell your parents, like your parents shouldn't, there should be a point where it goes, okay, well, my kid was in a situation, what happened,
Mhm.
right? Like, of course you're gonna ask, what did you do? You're gonna say, I didn't do anything, and they didn't believe you and say, okay, I believe that. And I feel like a lot of times the disconnect between the white parents and their children of color is they're white, they're black, essentially, right? And there is no middle ground in that. But us, right? If my son comes home and says, Dad, this happened to me, I'm gonna go say, okay, who was there? What were the demographic around you? Okay, son, this might have been why you were singled out.